Well, it's so interesting the overlap between us, Eric. I grew up in a chiropractic family.
Yeah.
I decided to go to osteopathic medical school because I wanted that tool in my toolbox.
Right.
And when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, orthopedics was my top choice.
Yeah.
And I really, and then I went into ER.
Yeah.
And I was the director of an emergency department at a level 2 trauma center for 12 years. I actually went into ER by default because I liked surgery and I liked medicine, and I was great in the intensive care. I was super good in good doing procedures. And every single one of my clinical rotations, the rotation that I was on, that particular person tried to convince me to be the fill in the blank.
Right,
So
I can imagine.
If I was on a cardiology rotation, they thought I should be a cardiologist. If I was on a surgical rotation, and I remember the chief of surgery came to me in my internship, and he said, I need to talk to you. And I thought, oh, what I do wrong, right? And so he took me aside. We went into the special doctor lounge, and where none of the interns or residents were allowed to go. And he said, he said, my 35 years of being a surgeon, I've never done this once. I've never tried to recruit a woman into the field of surgery. He said, but you're so good at it. And you're also got this background in medicine. I really think it's something that you should do. Yeah. And this happened for 22 months. And so every person, after we graduated and then we went out and did our rotations, every single person tried to convince me to be a what? and so at the end, and so it was kind of funny, actually. So we're coming through that we have a 1-year rotating internship before you go into a subspecialty of your choice. So our rotating internships, we go into the next phase of our life. Job ends June 30th. New job begins July 1st.
Right.
It's July 4th. I have no new job lined up.
Okay.
None. I hadn't interviewed for any residency programs. And then suddenly it was like, boy, Sherri, you're going to be like unemployed and have nothing to do. and 3 of the guys that I hung out with at the hospital, 2 of them were in anesthesia residence, and one was doing a 1 year of general surgery and then going into orthopedics.
Yeah.
All 3 of them had done ER first. And they said, Sherri, you're so good across the board at like everything. Why don't you go do ER for a year or 2 and like figure out what you really want to do when you grow up? Well, when I went to ER, I just loved it because I loved the variety. I loved the rock and roll stuff.
Yeah.
And so one thing led to another. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that about you, that you were going to go to medical school and be an orthopedist,
Yeah.
So, and I think if I had it to do over again with being an osteopath, I think being an orthopedic osteopath would have been really great.
You would have been absolutely. First of all, anything that you do, you're going to be amazing at. I was just talking about you yesterday to some really good friends of mine, and they know who you are, but they're like, tell me what, like, Eric, like, what is Sherri really like?
What's she really like?
Here's what I say. I say, Sherri is like, I call her the velvet hammer. What do you mean by that? Well, she is sweet as can be, smart as a whip, but I tell you what, don't get in that girl's crosshairs because she just knows too much about it. And they're like, fair enough, Eric, fair enough. So just so you know, that's how I talk about you when you're not around.
Oh, how sweet is that? So tell people about that big event that you had a couple of months ago. What led up to that? What happened, and what was the outcome?
Well, we had 3 really large events in Missouri, and they were freedom rallies. And really what led up to it? I mean, that's the gazillion-dollar question, right? We knew. Let me back up one more step. We know the whole mindset. We talk about how doctor is Latin for teacher. We're all about trying to help educate, inspire, and motivate. And by the way, the stuff that you say and I say is no different today than what we've said 20 years ago. So for us, now we have a bigger platform and people are going, wait a minute, those guys have been saying what we now understanding. So I needed an opportunity to bring people together. I had went to a freedom rally that was done by the 1776 group. Dr. Cordy Lee Williams is a friend of mine. Billy DeMoss, who is a mutual friend of both of ours. They said, hey, come out to Sacramento. This was like last spring when all this was really kind of getting started. There was really not even murmurs of any of this happening in Missouri. But California was it was already, crazy there. So I said, I'll go out there. Let's go out there and hang out with these folks. Let's see what this is all about. And I was so inspired that there were, masses of people gathering to talk about the truth and to educate each other and really to entertain and educate. And I said, man, I could do this. And no offense, I could do this probably better. And not only can we do it better, but we can do it bigger. And I said, we have to educate the masses so that people can make an informed decision. Like, that's really the key. Like, that's all I care about. I really, truly don't care what you do as long as you know what your options are. That's just my mindset. The problem is most people have no idea what their options are, or really half of their options. So I said, all right, we need to get together. And I've been friends with several politicians in Missouri for a long time. St. Louis is one of the biggest small towns on the planet. And so, you know, I got together with a couple senators that I know, a couple councilmen and women. I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I need help. So we rallied the troops, and we had our first rally, our first event, which is a Freedom Rally. And we had it on a rainy day in October. And we ended up having about 4,000 people show up. And the first one that we did, we had, you know, musicians playing freedom songs and music. We had, you know, all kinds of educational people and lawyers come in and talk about the truth, but it was inspirational stuff. And we had the Attorney General's office was there. The Secretary of State's office was there. We had representatives. The governor was there. We had, you know, state senators, congressmen. All these people came together all about freedom and transparency, because that's all I really care about. I just want transparency and freedom to choose. So the first one was really great. And I remember, Sherri, after the event, we took all the speakers back to my house and we had a little celebration, and we were talking, and I literally went downstairs to my basement and it was like the Missouri Republican caucus was downstairs trying to figure out what we just accomplished. Because you have to understand, a big rally for them is 300 people. And when I went downstairs to talk to these men and women, they said, all right, here's the deal. We need you to do this again. We need your help. We're all in. We are all in. We are all in, and we want to back you, support you. We get it. We see what's happening. How can we work together? And then we did another one, and there were 5,000 people at this event. And then we did another one. The last one we just did several weeks ago, right before the election. We had a parade, a rally parade that was about 4 miles long, which is amazing. That was so inspiring, by the way. And there were people all up and down the highways with their American flags. I mean, you want to talk about just being moved. That was so powerful. Then we all gathered out at the Family Arena in St. Charles, Missouri. All in, we had over 10,000 people that were either at the event and the rally. It was an all-day long deal. The governor came, and we're in Missouri, and you know, we're all a bunch of, you know, God-fearing, gun-toting conservative Americans over here. And it was great because the governor, his entrance, he was driving in a ginormous green John Deere tractor, drove up to the you know, the stage, jumped out and gave his speech, did a heck of a job. And you know, why did we do it? Because we had to. Why do we do it? Because we can. What do you mean we can? Well, I always say this: we're Americans, not Americants. And what do I mean by that? We're supposed to get together. That's what this country was founded on. I mean, you know, my grandfather, who's in his 90s, said to me over a cup of coffee one day, this is months ago, before this rally even happened, and he said, I said, Grandpa, what do you think's going on? And he goes, well, he used some words that I can't say on this Instagram live with us, this video, but he says, I'll tell you what, my generation went to war over way less than what's going on right now. And he said,
wow.
Yeah, and he says, don't you forget that there were people throwing tea in the harbor for less than a third of what's happening today. So that really inspired me to go, man, we are here where we are today. We're able to do this social media platform. We're able to have a practice. You know, we're able to have all the rights that we have because of our ancestors and what they did. And I'll be damned if that lineage is going to stop under my tutelage. And so I just said, all right, I'm going to continue practicing because that's what I love to do. So I still see patients 5 days a week. Now we're all over traveling the world, well, the country now, educating and speaking all over the place about, you know, what's really happening. We have a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we're doing with politicians because that's really the people that we have to help influence positively so that they know what's going on. And I'll just tell you, there's so many things that blew my mind. And the one big thing that blew my mind the most was when I was speaking to congressmen and women about the laws and liabilities when it comes to medications, biologics, vaccines, and et cetera. 99% of them, Sherri, had no idea that there was zero liability for the vaccine manufacturers. Like, they're like, that can't be true. There's no way that's right. That can't be. I said, that got passed in this house, or in this area, by your predecessors. And so once we showed them that, and they were like, how can this possibly be? So, I mean, that's kind of what we've done, where we're at, and there's a lot of work still that needs to be done. Lots.
So I'm assuming that you talked to them about the 1986 law.
That's exactly right.
Were you able to like tell them about the 2005 PrEP Act?
Yeah, and guess where I got a lot of that information from? Was you. So thank you for that. Absolutely, I can. And when you know what really blew my mind? When I'm having a conversation with the governor and the governor's people here locally about the PrEP Act, and they were all kind of scratching their heads like, that can't be right. And sure enough, once we showed them where it's all at, they're like, huh. And that was when that was really like,
that was it?
Well, it was like the nail. Well, that's what a politician does, because they don't show their hand. It's almost like you tell them what's going on. And you know, I'm a pretty logical person, but I can be very emotionally charged. I mean, I've got Italian heritage. I talk with my hands, and I can get really fired up fast. And I'm literally standing up, and I'm not screaming. They're like, Doc, just calm down. I said, you guys, I'm at a 4. I can be at 10 real quick if you need me to be. And I'm sharing all this with them, and literally this is what I get. Huh. Interesting. We're going to have to take that under consideration. And then the next day, we got on a call, and they said, we need you to come to Jeff City because we have to talk about this some more. And so it's interesting how, to me, it's interesting how people that help make the legislation and enforce the legislation don't really understand the genesis of it or the repercussions of it. And once they look at it, they go, this really doesn't seem right at all. Now, what are we going to do about it? And so that's kind of where we're at now, is we're in the what are we going to do about it? And, you know, I know you know this, and I know a lot of the viewers that are watching now know this. You got to understand, we have decades, if not centuries, of misinformation, misdirection, suppression of the truth. And we finally have some people that are literally putting out spilling of the beans of what's really going on. And now people that have been in that system, like legislation and the executive branch, all this kind of stuff, now they're kind of going, maybe we really do need to do something, but how are we going to do it? And boy, there's an awful lot of money that's going to be supposed to be coming to my campaign that's not going to be now, because if we go against what our big donors are telling us to do, then how are we going to get reelected? And I said, you guys, it's the power of the people. Look, there's 10,000 people that just came to this rally. They all support what you're going to do. And 10,000 turns into 100,000 real quick. Don't worry about that dirty money. Let's make sure we have good, clean elections, because these people are going to get you passed through. And that's what America's all about. And so that's kind of what's happening right now, Sherri.
Wow. Well, for those of you guys, because we've got hundreds and hundreds of people rolling in here this morning, because that little ticker at the top just isn't the truth. Sure. And so when we, click off, so just for you guys who may not know who this amazing friend of mine is, and I'm so proud to be able to say, Dr. Eric Nepute from St. Louis, Missouri, who's joining us this morning. We have great guests on our Monday morning talk. In talking about what's going on out there in politics. And for those people, there's a couple of questions that came up and said, what is the PrEP Act? Well, the PrEP Act, the 1986 Injury Compensation Act, gave the vaccine companies 100% liability protection for any vaccine that's on the pediatric schedule. Fast forward to 2005, after the bird flu and after the first round of them trying to create a pandemic, this law, which is called the PrEP Act for short, stands for the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act of 2005, literally got tacked onto the back end of a defense appropriation bill at 11:30 on a Saturday night on December the 17th, after most of Congress went home. Nobody in the Senate and nobody in the House really had read it. And so they tacked it on. It was originally called Division E. And then they rolled it into calling it the 2005 PrEP Act that gives the pharmaceutical industry 100% liability protection, not only for vaccines, but any drug, software, hardware, anything that they call a covered countermeasure that is under the umbrella of the PrEP Act. Well, the PrEP Act of 2005 was entered into the Federal Register March 17th of 2020 when our illustrious Alex Azar, traitor that he is, man, that man, I'd just like to have him in a room, you know?
Velvet Hammer.
Yeah, exactly. But what they did was they activated the PrEP Act in March, which now everything that has been developed since that time, this vaccine that has been fast-tracked under an EUA, an emergency utilization authorization, the vaccine that's had no animal trials. We've tried to do this every year since 2002. It's failed because the animals get sick or die. Every microchipping technology, every ingredient, including the hydrogel and the luciferase, I mean, everything that's in those vaccines, you cannot sue anybody. You have zero liability protection, even if this vaccine kills you. Now, there's a question that just came up here. Do they have a similar act in Canada? They have similar acts to this in Canada and all over Europe because it's coming out through the World Health Organization now. And it was thanks to Bill Gates, who said, wow, we need to give these people protection because, I mean, they're putting their businesses on the line to fast track this. Mm-hmm. So this is, yes. So somebody said, do I have a summary of it? Yes. If you go to Vaxxter.com, V is in victory, V is in vaccine, VAXXTER.com. There's a 4-part series there, one on the PrEP Act, one on the PCR testing, one on the masks, and I forget what the fourth, the one is on hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
All of those things are there. You can print them out. There's lots of printable things. You can post them, share them. They're all free. That's all there. So all that stuff is right there. So it's interesting, Eric, that you talk to politicians and they're like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me about the 2005 Act because think about it. I mean, how many people in Congress, just a handful of gold geezers like Nancy Pelosi and, Mitch McConnell and, some of those people who have been around for, Dianne Feinstein that have been around for like a lifetime, but who's been around in Congress, in the Senate, since 2005. And think about the hundreds and hundreds of bills that have been introduced and a handful of those been passed since that time. So how many people really know about the PrEP Act? The question I have for you, because of the circles you run in, and I don't know the answer to this, I wonder if you do.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go.
Do you think President Trump is aware of what's going on with the PrEP Act?
I know that he is.
Really?
So here's what I'll tell you so I know that, here's what I do know. I know that people that are very close to him that have told people that, have told me and others that this is on the table and they've discussed it. I've not been in the room while that conversation's had, so I'm assuming that's the case. But what I do know is, I know that I've personally spoken to over 25 congressmen and women about the PrEP Act. Wow. And that's a pretty dang good amount of them. So I know there's some buzz about it. And I know that states like, especially Missouri, Josh Hawley is from Missouri. Josh Hawley, who's a friend of mine, Josh Hawley, who's really stepped up this year and really started the fight about, freedom of information, about censorship, about a lot of things. I've had conversations with him about this and his people. And I know that, just like all of us, our plates get filled up with a lot of activities and a lot of things. But I do know that the individuals that have direct connections with the POTUS have that intel. Now, do I know that they've had conversations about it? That I just don't. But I'm just going to tell you, my business is a fraction of what business knowledge that Donald Trump has. And I know that he runs the administration like he runs his business. And one of the key things as a business CEO, information is the key. And the more information you have about every aspect you could possibly get, the more strategic you can be in your planning for all things. And whether people love him or hate him, this guy is a genius when it comes to business strategies and implementation of information and how to get information. So I just, when I talk to these politicians, and by the way, the next politician that I hear says this, I'm going to have to call you for bail money, because the next time I hear one say, I'm just a state representative, or I'm just a mayor or I'm just a county executive. It's not really my job to know this. I get my information from our county health department. The next person that says that, I'm literally going to smack them or punch them in the face. And the only reason I'm going to do that, well, there's two reasons. Number one, personal satisfaction. And number two, I need it to get into the media because that is absolutely your job. So you know that President Trump's job is to know as much as he can about everything that's going on, because as the commander in chief, he's got to know where to pull intel from. I don't know. I pray for him every day, and I pray for all people that are trying to fight this fight the right way every day, and I just really hope that that he does know everything that's going on.
Why do you think that he's pushing so hard? And Alex Azar is saying we'll have 40 million doses of an unapproved vaccine by the end of December. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, isn't that really the gazillion-dollar question? I've been asked that question probably 100 times in the last 3 days. And
in the last 3 days?
Oh my gosh, it's been unbelievable how many people. I talk to a lot of people, Sherri, just like you do. And that's
you
the
talk
thing.
to a boatload more than I do.
Well,
I haven't talked to 100 people in a week.
You want to change places? I'm so in for that. I want to go back to my normal life. I just want to get up, go to the work, take care of people, go home, see my family, go to bed, get up and repeat, and have some fun. That's all I want to do. But we can't do that at this point. Not for a long time. I know.
Not happening.
So
now I've dragged you into this Ohio lawsuit, and so now you're going to be busier than ever.
Thanks, Sherri. I love you.
You're welcome.
Don't worry. It's about to be reciprocated in Missouri, and you're going to be right next to me on that deal.
Please, 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 please. And I'll even get on an airplane just for you now.
I'll come get you. It's fine. We need to drive and talk anyway. So here's what I do know. Now that I've been involved in politics now for the last 10 months, which is 10 months longer than I ever wanted to be involved with it, I really realize what politics is all about. It really is about smoke and mirrors. It really is about saying one thing and doing the other. I mean, I literally do not trust any of these people when they say anything to me until I see them do something. I'm in Missouri. It's the show me state. So when people ask me, why do you think the president is helping push this vaccine thing? I think it's politics. I think he's playing to the politics and this is my own personal opinion, okay? This is my own personal opinion. I have no basis other than my own last 17 years of experience and just what I common sense think is happening. A couple things are going to happen here. Number one, the vaccine topic, well, I don't have to tell you, I'm preaching to the choir, is probably one of the most controversial topics on the planet, which how funny the truth is controversial. And I know this because one of my close friends is a senator here in Missouri. He's a lawyer and he's a medical doctor. And when we had this conversation months ago, he's like, Eric, I absolutely love you and I think you're great. I love your passion and your knowledge base is amazing. But I'm a medical doctor. He's like, help me understand how I can, and he said these words, betray my profession when going against these vaccines that have been shown to be safe and effective. And I said, okay, are you ready to have this conversation? He says, yes. So we did. And then I said at the end of the conversation, I said, remember that oath of office that you took that first said, first do no harm? And then somewhere in there it said, do everything ethically, legally, and morally to help your patients? He says, yeah. I said, you don't have an obligation to your profession. You have an obligation to your patients. And he literally, when I said that, just sat back. And this is one of the most analytical people I've ever met in my life. He just sat back and I could see him just his wheels cranking and turning. And then he says, Eric, you're right. People should have the freedom to choose. And who am I to decide who they are to make those decisions for them? And I said, that's the key, my friend. So I believe the reason why this is getting pushed so hard, there's several reasons. I believe that there's been a lot of misinformation and misguided information that's been given to the politicians to say that this vaccine, number one, is safe, number two, is effective, number three, that we've done enough data and research on it, because I have scoured the scholarly articles and there aren't any. There's no PubMed research. Nope. They basically are putting out what they say works, which I would love to do that. Like, I would love to pull out a bottle of here's my zinc. And by the way, I'm not saying this is true. So don't anybody take this little clip of video and try to spin this. This is me making fun of what they're doing. If I took a bottle of zinc and said, this will regrow your hair, this will make you 6'7", this will make you rich, all you gotta do is take it. Where's the research that says it? Well, I just said that it does, because that's what Pfizer, Moderna, Merck, that's what they're doing right now. There is no data that supports this. And if I'm wrong, please somebody show me the data, because I'm in Missouri. I'm all about the show me state, and I just can't find it.
Well, I just want to take one step back. I want to not really correct, but add to
Please.
What you just said. It's not what they're just doing right now. It's what they've been doing all along.
Of course.
You know, it's like safe and effective. Just because I said it makes it so. Vaccines are safe and effective. Why? Because I said so. Oh, because we've got 200 years of proof. Really? Show me one piece of proof. It's like, just because you've said it over and over and over and over again doesn't make it to be true. And so this whole thing, and what Eric just said, this is for you guys that just joined us, I think he needs no introduction, but I'll say his name again just in case. This is Dr. Eric Nepute, St. Louis, Missouri, chiropractor, politician, businessman, my dear friend. And that's, you know, all in one thing. But I think that, you know, it's been a really interesting evolution, Eric. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years. It was 20 years in September and more than 40,000 hours of my life. So when you say I'm the velvet hammer, I mean, nobody really knows this. I mean, a lot of people know a lot of stuff. And even Andy Wakefield says to me, you know, I always defer to Sherri. And Dell says the same thing, because Andy says, I know everything about measles, but Sherri knows everything about everything else.
Yeah.
And so it's been an interesting evolution to watch this happen, and particularly watch it happen this year. You know, I've been saying for, I don't know, long time. I brought the URL, Coalition Against Mandatory Vaccination, in 2002. I knew we were going to get to this point. I was told that I was a reactionary and they'd never go that far, Sherri, and I couldn't get any momentum behind trying to stop it. Think of where we would be, Eric, if we could have gotten this type of momentum in 2002, 3, 4, even 5 with the bird flu stuff, and tried to get people rallied to say, this is coming, let's build a wall and let's head it off at the pass. But in typical American / maybe typical human fashion, nobody takes action, you know, till it's right here. And it's sort of like, you know, when you hear on your television, you know, tornado warning, take cover, go to the basement. Mm-hmm. Nobody does it until trees are falling down in their backyard. And nowadays, people don't even do it then. They run outside with their phone to take a picture so they can put it up on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So now we've got this disaster happening. But it's been interesting, because when we got everybody, you know, quarantined and under house arrest and all this other stuff, and they're paying attention to these pressers every day, it's the first time ever that we've taken tens of millions of people and put the vaccine issue into their consciousness. And now everybody's watching fast tracking. What does that mean? I mean, no research, animal studies not done. Oh, and they're using aborted fetal cells. And then when Dr. Carrie Madej came on the scene and said, oh, well, let me tell you, it's worse than that, and started telling about the other ingredients. Now, you just mentioned, and I've said too, as you and I talked about this last Monday, as a matter of fact, about that there's no research. There's nothing. The only thing that's coming out right now that's saying it's 95% effective is a press release.
Yeah.
I mean, it's collated data. It's a press release. There's not even any preliminary study subject to peer review that you can go out and start looking at and start parsing the data of saying how many people were in the study, how many people got a placebo, and oh, by the way, what was the placebo? Right. And all these things. There's nothing but press releases.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about our politicians, since we're talking about this political stuff, globbing onto that and just running with it? I mean, how can that possibly be?
Well, you know, Sherri, you're so right. In fact, I was on a radio program last week, and I didn't know this, but they basically tried to set me up to blindside me, to throw these 2 doctors at me that were all for vaccines, all for whatever. And I'm publicly freedom to choose. Again, I say all the time, do what you want to do as long as you know what you're doing. And so they came at me and they said, well, did you see what Sanjay Gupta said? Sanjay Gupta said that he's the CNN medical correspondent that they pay to say whatever they want them to say. That's his job. And he said that, this vaccine is 90 to 94% successful. And then in the second breath, he said, But the reality of it is that we're going to still have to social distance and wear masks because we don't know if it's going to be 2 to 3 vaccines. We also know that really the criteria for success with this had really nothing to do with lowering the infection rate. It was lowering the severity of the infection when it happens. And I said to those doctors, doctors, let me ask you a question. Have any of you ever done any research, double-blind controlled placebo studies at all? And neither one of them had. Well, I have. I've done quite a few of them. I've been in a lot of studies, and I said, well, you understand that there's no way to use the variable as, well, the cough isn't as bad. It's kind of like when for the last 20 years when my patients say to me, well, I got the flu, but thank God I got the flu shot because the doctor told me it would be so much worse if I didn't. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You really buy that? Because if you do, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona. I'm going to sell it to you really cheap, and here's the deal. Just sign here, and I'll give it to you for so cheap. It's just so funny how common sense is not that common. And when you challenge somebody's lack of common sense understanding, they literally, this is the response. Huh. And so I said to those guys, I said, well, Gupta, who they've basically said is basically their God, the Gupta says. And I said, well, Gupta also said, and I just laid that out, and they were like, huh. And then I said to them, I said, guys, I will help you in a heartbeat. I said, I have a 500,000 people that follow us on social media. We reach about 10 million people a week through ericnepute.com. I want to help be an advocate for health. I said, could you please show me 2 things, and I'll go right now online in front of millions of people and say, vaccines are safe and effective. I said, you got to show me the data that shows that, and I want to see it, the last 20 years of research. And then number 2, show me the PubMed articles that talk about how this vaccine is effective, and show me the database of how many people. And I want to see more than 200 people that were studied. And I want to also see some data that shows short-term or long-term, because this is a DNA vaccine, and we've never been able to successfully create something. In fact, all the animals died that they tried to do vaccines with in the past with SARS and MERS, and when they tried human trials, it was not good. And they both were like, huh? They didn't know that. And they didn't know that I knew that. So it was kind of like, don't even mess with something that you don't even know about. And God bless you guys, just like the politicians who are making these claims that are saying things that they're getting told, right? People do what people do, right? And so they're being told what to say by their lobbyists, who make a very convincing, compelling argument. Trust me, I've sat in the same rooms with some very powerful senators when literally Merck, Pfizer, and the pharmaceutical lobbyists are sitting right there, and I'm behind a group of my representatives, and I'm there just as a counsel. And literally, when they ask a question, I lean forward and say, "Ask them this," and then they give a response, and I'll say, "Well, ask them that." And then you should see the looks on the faces of these pharmaceutical folks and the high-priced, smart, but evil attorneys that work for them. Oh my goodness, are they a whole different breed? And there's a special place in hell for them, right at the front of the line whenever they get there. So I don't know, Sherri. I mean, that's my 2 cents on that. There's a lot more that's going to be coming out on it. But what we've got to do is we've got to start getting people to ask questions, because the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions you ask. If you ask the right questions, that makes your brain think and other people's brains think logically. And so if we just get people to go, well, hey, what's in that thing? And I literally have personally asked now tens of thousands of people that have said to me, Dr. Eric, what do you think about this vaccine? And I say, well, do you know what's in it? And they go, well, no. And I said, well, do you want anything going in your body that you don't know what's in it? And they go, huh, never thought of that. What do you mean you've never thought of that?
Well, therein is the rub. They never thought. They never thought. It's like the goose stepping to what you've been told. And, just talk for just a second about even like the childhood vaccine schedule. I mean, it's gotten so loaded. I mean, there's 17 different vaccines, and you get multiple doses of them, that the CDC provides to doctor's office free of charge a software called COCASA. And it takes up to 20 hours of training for people that work in doctors' offices that administer vaccines to be able to run this software. The COCASA software is such that if a parent comes in and says, okay, I'm willing to vaccinate, but I only want to give one at a time. And so how far apart do I have to schedule these sorts of things? And what kinds of ones can you not put together and they have to be 30 days apart? It's so complicated that the CDC had to create a software so that they could actually plug these things in, because it can't be before this one and it has to be more than 30 days after that one, and it can't be by a live one. Why don't we just stop poisoning children? Why don't we just plain stop poisoning children? I mean, it's just, and so doctors don't think. They don't think. And it's really a shame to see what the medical profession has turned into, that they're just, kind of glorified drug reps that just, they got their little prescription pad, they just write words on a piece of paper, hand that out all day.
Yep.
And to think about, I've said this for a long time, Eric, that, when you go to a lawyer, you expect them to know something about the law. You go to a CPA, you expect them to know something about taxes and business planning. You go to a doctor, they're supposed to be an expert in anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. And if they're a really good doctor, they'll understand energy and energetic patterns, and they'll know something about nutrition because, but instead of doctors being an expert in anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry, all they know about is symptom pill, symptom pill, symptom pill.
Yeah.
And you take away their prescription pad, they're like deer in the headlight. They don't know what to do. And it's so sad that we've gotten to that point, in our society, and it's just gotten worse. And now I've seen, and I want to ask you this question next, is, I know you talk to a lot of politicians, and thank God that you're doing that. And I just think it's pretty amazing where you've been doing it. Have you talked to a lot of medical doctors? I mean, just regular old Joe Blow, Jane Doe, run of the mill. They've got to practice just like you have or like I have, because I still see patients 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And do you think that there's two parts of this question? Number one, are they waking up? And number two, do you think there's just maybe a silent majority out there of people that are just waiting for leadership to be able to stand behind? Because doctors at their core are cowards. They're just cowards. And I just wonder, so is there a lot of them? What are they saying? And do you think there's an underground? I mean, Dr. Scott Jensen, from Minnesota, the senator from Minnesota is also a physician. He told me he doesn't think there's any hope. And so I just wonder what your take is on it.
So let me first of all, great question, and I want to really surgically dissect this thing, no pun intended. But here's what I know to be true. Everybody in life makes their decisions based off of their values and how their brain works and how they perceive things. And Sherri, you know this to be true, and I know this to be true. Most of our listeners may not know this. Most people get into medicine now because, well, their teachers go, hey, you're an A student. You would really be a good medical doctor. Some people get into medicine because they want to help people. Some people get into medicine and healthcare because they've had a life change like me. And so you got this mindset, and the majority of people who are really good and excel in medicine are very logical. 1 + 1 = 2. They're very Newtonian physics. They don't really understand the quantum world, which is really how the world works. They don't realize that anything can cause anything. And they just do everything 100% by the book. And so, as I'm talking to these doctors, I say, listen, I know that you've spent $200,000 to $400,000 on your education. When you invest that much time, energy, and money into that type of an education, you're going to do it the exact way that you've been taught because you're vested. You are heavily invested in that. And so a lot of times they just go with the flow. They know that they follow the protocol. I just shared this morning, I had a conversation with a friend of a friend through my pastor whose father's 77 years old. He's in Lexington, Kentucky right now. They will not give his father IV vitamins. They won't use the Merrick or Zelensky protocol on him in the hospital. They've done everything else. And they went to this guy's dad, who, by the way, this guy's dad just ran a marathon 2 years ago. He's very healthy, other than I say that he's healthy, but he's smoked for 40 years. He has pulmonary hypertension, so he's prone to having issues. So when I got on the phone with the chief of the ER, the head doctor there, he said, listen, doc, I appreciate your input, and we really appreciate what you're doing. I know who you are, but we have protocols that we've agreed to follow, and we can't sway from our protocols because they know that those are the people that are going to follow lockstep without even questioning it. There's a mindset for that, Sherri. But yet, and then this brings me back to my commencement speech that I was given, that I heard from the speaker who gave it, and it resonated with me still today. I'm talking, this was 18 years ago. I heard this guy say this, and he said, professors, students, be very, very nice to your A students. They are going to be your colleagues. But professors, be very, very nice to your B and C students that think outside the box. They're going to pay for your new science building. Because if you continue to do what you've always done, you're going to keep getting that same response. And if you start thinking outside the box, like a lot of people are doing, a lot of doctors are doing, we have to wake up those people that are doing 1 + 1 = 2 and go, no. 1 + 1 = 2, but if you do this, it does that, and that. And at the end of the day, don't you remember our oath of office to take care of our people? And so we're waking up a lot of people, but Sherri, most of the, and I'm just going to say this as politically correct as I can, Kool-Aid drinking medical doctors that don't want to buck the system are afraid because they've been threatened by with their license to being lost. Remember, less than 12% of doctors now are even in private practice. So
wow, I didn't know that number.
Yeah, less than 12%. So you think about this, you got a doctor that's making $200,000 to $300,000 a year to follow the protocol, that works 3 or 4 days a week, that doesn't want to ruin their good gig that they've got. If they come out and speak out about this, look at all the doctors that work for hospitals in big groups, Sherri. Look at Simone. Look at all the Zelensky. Look at all these other doctors. They've been ostracized. Look at Senator Scott Jensen, who they went after his medical license twice. He's a senator and an MD for saying that this thing is on par for the flu, and the data supports that 1,000%. And look how they went after them. And most of these folks are cowards, and they don't believe anything, and they don't have any leadership within their ranks. Now, you look at individuals like me, you look at most chiropractors and a lot of DOs, just personality-wise, we are rugged individualists. Whenever you come to tell us that we can't do something, I'm going to tell you to sit right there and watch me do it. And these are the ones that are making the changes. Sherri, I have personally, whether it's been online or through Zoom or in my offices, have taken care of over 250,000 individuals across the country that have suspected that they either have flu, COVID symptoms, or whatever. And I have less than a handful of those people that have ended up in the hospital. And by the way, I'm not treating them with drugs and surgery and all this. I'm doing exactly what you and I are taught to do. Look at the physiology, look at what's going on, look at what we can do naturally to help improve their health. Because if the major comorbidities are obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol, well, my gosh, those are 4 things that are reversible in most cases, especially hypertension and diabetes and high cholesterol. I mean, I got a program. Yeah, well, that's where they all stem from. That's what I was getting into next. So I agree with Senator Jensen on the fact that there's not leadership because they're scared. Because here's the deal, and this is something that one of my mentors taught me years ago, that if you are leading the pack, you're the first to get praised, but you're the first to get shot at, and you're the first to get shot at first before they praise you. And not everybody's built for that, and I get it.
And I talk a lot about the doctors, and I talk about medical doctors being MDs, DOs, and for the most part, Eric, the lion's share of chiropractors too. They just go along to get along. You know, they don't want to be ostracized in their community. So, you know, doctors, MDs, DOs, chiropractors, a lot of nurse practitioners, you know, things like that. They move their herd animals. They move in a pack. And I always visualize them as being like a herd of water buffalo. They just kind of lump along, and they just kind of do everything in lockstep. And then when you're the one little water buffalo that goes over here, you get eaten by the lion. And so, you know, so they're like, well, I saw my friend try to like go into functional medicine, try to buck the system. He got eaten by the lion. I'm just going to stay and move along in the pack herd. Even though they may be depressed, they may hate their job. They just look at it as a job nowadays because they don't really like patients anymore, because they don't like what they're doing in terms of writing out just prescriptions for a living. They're going to stay moving along in that pack of like water buffalo because there's no courage. There's no courage of conviction. In fact, I did a podcast. This was, I don't know. I did 170 of them in the last 6 months. So I don't know. It was one of them somewhere along there. Yeah. And at the end of the interview, the guy who was interviewing me asked me, so what did I think was the biggest problem in America today? And I sat for just a second. I said, the lack of courage. The
That's
lack
beautiful.
of courage and the lack of conviction behind that courage. Because you have to have a conviction in order to feel the fear and do it anyways. And step forward and saying, I'm going to do the right thing and put my life, my livelihood, everything on the line because this is the right thing to do. And it's the lack of courage and the lack of conviction. And I think that you would
Sherri,
agree
think
with
about
that.
this. I agree 100%. Think about, gosh, how screwed up we are even as children. Like when you're a little kid and you're just asking questions all the time. Mom, what's this? Dad, what's that? At some point, a lot of times they go, stop asking so many questions. No, that's the problem. Teach them to ask questions. And I want to give every man, woman, and child right now watching, I want to give them the opportunity to start asking questions again. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to understand that you're not underneath like this just regime of the government. Like, remember this, the government is there to support us. They work for us. It's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to ask your doctors questions. And I have so many people that say, well, when I ask my doctors a question about a drug or a vaccine, it's almost like they scold me like a parent. You know what? Run out of that office. Don't walk, and find somebody who truly cares about your health and educate yourself on how you can help yourself be healthy. So I agree with you 100 bazillion% that it's lack of courage, lack of leadership, and we've been just trained to follow the system. We are definitely a herd mentality, and the only thing that's true about a herd is herd immunity, and that's it. And by the way, we're there in most areas. Just FYI.
And just a couple things as we're winding up our time here. That's that whole thing about case-demic now, right? I mean, every day we hear more and more cases. Wait till you see, Eric, I haven't had a chance to tell you this yet, because it just happened day before yesterday. I was doing, I'm doing this series of it's a 7-part educational series on COVID. And part 1 is laws and liability. Part 2 is the myth of the mask. Part 3 is social distancing and contact tracing. I went through that entire Johns Hopkins course. It took me 3 days to go through it.
God bless you.
I know, seriously. And so I just finished that. Now, part 4 is about, the entire scam of this testing. And so I really wanted to understand what PCR testing was all about. What did the amplification method mean? What did we do with that? What does this CT thing mean? This count mean? This critical threshold? What does it really mean? So over the weekend, I took a really deep dive, and at 3:00 in the morning, I was reading this document. It's literally size 2 font. I think I found the Holy Grail. In terms of I found it says, in order for a CT in order for a CT count to be accurate, hold on one second. Let me just look at something here real quick. It's called a cycle threshold.
Yep.
In order for a cycle threshold to be accurate and be able to standardize and compare it from one to another, there are 17 different things that I found so far that make it be invalid, make the test be invalid. 17.
Yep.
And I think that this is this amplification, what I'm digging out here for our Ohio lawsuit, which I'm happy to share with you. I talked to Tom Rentz last night, and I showed him some of the stuff that I was coming up with. He said, unbelievable. He said, we need to get you in a place that this is all you do all day long is dig through this stuff and make it easy for people to understand. I said, well, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And he said, this is going to be, I think that we might be able to throw out all of it with what I've found. And so the whole point of saying that is that I think that we are at a point where we can upend this entire system and make it stop. Make it stop. And so I told Tom, I said, give me a few days because I feel like this is the most important information I've dug out in the last months about this. And really, because you said to me, and what really made me do it was you. Because you said to me last Monday when we were talking about this, you said, Sherri, we've got to implode this whole thing about the testing because cases mean nothing. And the more cases that we have, we should say that's great. That means this virus is going through the general population and we're developing real herd immunity and nobody's getting sick. So we need to change the paradigm, and I think I got it figured out. So On that happy note, we got 3 minutes left before
All right.
Instagram shuts us off. I want everybody to know where they can find you, to follow you, how they can support you. Do you sell your supplements to the general public?
Yeah, in fact, here's what I'm going to do too, because I do. And Facebook, I just love this. I love that I just don't care, because I got threatened by Facebook, and we got kind of shut down by them. You know how that goes, because I gave away 10,000 bottles of zinc because I want everybody to have zinc. And I got literally the Attorney General's office. I had all these people mad at me. And I said, well, I'm never going to do that again. But if you guys go to myfreezinc.com, I've got 20,000 bottles of zinc. I'm giving them away this week because I just don't even care. And then
wait. Somebody needs to write that in the chat.
Myfreezinc.com. That's myfreezinc.com. Because when you go there, what it'll do is it gives you, Sherri, all the videos that I've done. Some of the interviews that you and I did are going to be on there. We have hundreds of videos, all the stuff that was pulled off social media. The video I did on zinc that 50 million people watched is all on there. It's all there, and I'm just giving away zinc. Just myfreezinc.com. They can go there. ericnepute.com. All the information is there. You got to go there to follow the movement. That's ericnepute.com, ericnepute.com. And listen, I'm with you, sister. We got to blow this thing up from the inside out. We're so close to letting all the truth out, but we need everyone that's watching has to share these videos. Every one of you is a publisher and an author. You got to help get the word out. If you don't share, then this stops, because they don't want this message to get out. And we're getting it out in a big way, but we're doing it the right way from the grassroots. So share. Save these videos. Text them to your friends. Go do a watch party later. And just get the word out. That's what you got to do.
And every one of my Monday morning lives and every one of my happy hours that I do 3 days a week, they're all up on disseminate.tv.
Yes, they are.
So you go to it's our private site. We've got our servers spread across 4 continents, so they can't bring us down. It's completely protected. Go to disseminate.tv, and you can put Dr. Tenpenny up in the search and find all these Monday morning ones, or you can put up Happy Hour with Dr. Happy Hour up there and find all of the ones that I do for Happy Hour. You can put Critically Thinking in there and find all of the Thursday night webinars that I do with Dr. Pilevsky. So Eric, we got 45 seconds. I just want to tell you how much I love you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being my friend. Thank you for being a warrior with God. Thank you for doing all the things that we do. And until we do this again, you guys have a great week. Thanks for everybody who's watching today and forward. And Eric, keep up the good work. I love you so much, brother.
Thank you. I love you too.